The shift in perspective, now they are finally starting to understand. Now that the darkness has cleared, they realize the truth. Welcome back, O Chosen One. You who were described as chaotic, you who were misunderstood, and you who were judged before your intentions were ever seen. You were a silent player moving on a level their minds could not reach. They called you impulsive, emotional, and unstable. They swore you were descending and losing your balance. But how strange the stories change when the smoke clears. What they called madness has suddenly become precision. What they thought was recklessness has been revealed as insight. You saw the entire board while they were still stuck in a small game with no horizon. Tell me, O Chosen One, when did you realize they thought you were losing your mind? Was it when you withdrew in silence? When you stopped arguing? Or when you made a decision that seemed reckless to them, but was the only choice your soul found peace in? They were confused, friends, family, and even strangers. They whispered, diagnosed you, and bet on your fall. But what they failed to see was that you weren't losing control. You were reclaiming it. Every chaotic step was calculated. Every bridge burned was preceded by a look at the consequences. You imagined your future with certain people, and then you deleted that version of your life with quiet precision. They thought you were falling apart, but you were actually coming together. Madness versus genius, there is a kind of understanding that scares people because it doesn't announce itself or ask for permission. When you stopped playing their game, they said you collapsed. When you started playing your own, they said you were mad. But madness and genius have lived in the same house since the beginning of time. The only difference is the result. Think back to that decisive moment when you made the choice that made them question your sanity. Perhaps you left a job that looked perfect on paper but was draining your soul. Perhaps you ended a relationship they said was suitable while you felt a slow suffocation. Or perhaps you just disappeared. No posts, no justifications, no explanations. They called your silence a disorder. They called you reckless. Even those who claimed to care described it as a cry for help. But you weren't asking to be saved. You were removing the noise. You weren't collapsing. You were breaking through barriers. The calculated leap, the safe ones, do not understand calculated risk. To the untrained eye, a reckless jump and a jump by someone who knows where they will land look identical in midair. But while one studied the fall and managed the calculations, the others were content with small dreams inside comfortable cages. That was you. Now they see the results. They cannot deny the life you are building, the serenity you walk with, and the strength you carry. You weren't mad. You were ahead of your time. When the dust settled, it wasn't madness. It was wisdom. It wasn't recklessness. It was courage and sincere trust in God's arrangement. The irony of their realization, now comes the painful, beautiful irony. Those who doubted you are now asking how you did it. They want to know where you got that boldness. But you know the truth. This isn't admiration. It's delayed realization. They are only now arriving at a decision you made long ago. The gap between your moment of knowing and their moment of believing is the proof that you weren't lost. You were ahead. Your madness was actually purity. When you took that step, something deep inside them noticed. Their denial and pride realized you were touching a truth they didn't have the courage to approach. That realization scared them. Because if you were right, if what they called madness was actually clarity, then what were they? They were the ones who were scared, conforming to their routines, and surrendering to the safe choice disguised as responsibility. That is why they had to make you wrong. They needed you to be a cautionary tale to help them sleep at night. Your thriving is their reality check, but you didn't give them that comfort. You didn't fall. You didn't return crawling. You did the one thing they couldn't stand. You flourished. You evolved and became living proof that the path they feared actually leads to a beautiful place. Now they have to live with the fact that you walk freely in a reality they convinced themselves was impossible. What hurts them most is that you aren't angry. You don't hold a grudge. You aren't waiting for apologies that may never come. You realized that their doubt wasn't about you. It was about them. Their fear was a mirror of their own limits. Now, when they sneak into your messages with soft words like, "I was thinking of you," or "You look happy," you see it clearly. This isn't a reconciliation. It's an investigation. They want to know if the rules they lived by are still valid or if you broke them without paying a price. The blueprint of a chosen one. This wasn't the first time, was it? You have a track record of seeing the turns before they exist. You saw the separation before the cracks appeared. You left the place before it turned to chaos. You walked away from shiny opportunities because their scent was wrong. You moved with an intuition faster than their logic. While they wait for a committee or social consensus, you move based on clarity. They move when the road is safe. You move when the decision is right. You aren't lucky, and you don't possess the knowledge of the unseen. You simply mastered the art of listening to what they spent their lives ignoring. You hear the whisper under the words. You see the patterns hidden in what looks like chaos to others. They call it a gift, but it's actually deep awareness, an attention that exhausts the average mind. You were working with data that isn't written on paper, emotional data, human signals, and spiritual shifts. You solved the equation of a future they couldn't imagine because they wouldn't allow themselves to want anything outside the script. Protecting your algorithm. Now the scene has changed. Those who mocked you are now curious. They will ask you how you did it. They will ask you to teach them. But here is the real test. Not everyone deserves access to your method. Some people don't want to grow. They want shortcuts. They want your peace without your patience. They want your clarity without crossing the storms. You cannot give mastery to those who aren't willing to be refined by pain and silence. You don't owe them the map or the details of your healing path. Your story is not a lesson for spectators. It is an experience lived only by warriors. The loyal few. Then there are those rare souls who didn't fully understand you but never doubted you either. They stayed silent when others judged. They didn't understand your path, but they didn't question your sanity. They trusted your energy. Those quiet, faithful people who stood by you in the confusion are the only ones who deserve your wisdom. They didn't need to see the destination to believe in your direction. For them, your success isn't a surprise. It's a confirmation of what they already felt. The final truth. You didn't have a perfect plan. You had a compass pointing to truth. You didn't have all the steps. You just knew that staying still was not an option. You didn't calculate every outcome. You calculated the cost of not changing. You trusted yourself when every voice said, "Don't." You chose your peace over their approval. You chose your future over their comfort. You were saving yourself every time you made a decision they didn't understand. You were choosing between the version of you they wanted and the version you were destined to become. You bet on yourself when you were the longest shot in the room. You walked through the storm with nothing but the umbrella of your own conviction.